you mentioned kids are very spiritually sensitive at a young age. And so when they're having nightmares and there's certain things that are going on, can you talk for a moment to help parents understand that when it comes to children and how to navigate it when your child does have a nightmare or something is coming up? Because it's, you really address that it's not something we should just push off, but something, it can be a teaching moment and to help them understand even a greater dimension of when it comes to spiritual warfare as well.
Yes, I think as parents, the first thing that we have to do is we have to listen to our children because sometimes, as you said, we do pass it off. And, it's as if, they said it, but it wasn't real. Oh, you didn't really see that. A few of my sons would see demonic spirits. And, I always paid attention to that. You validate what they're seeing when you listen to them. And so once you understand what's going on, then you can take charge of the situation. And so, as a parent, yes, you take authority over that thing, you cast it out, you forbid it to come back. But then there may be times that your child is not with you. And so they also need to learn. And I believe that there is so much power in the name of Jesus that that young child could use the name of Jesus and command that thing to go as well, and it would have to obey. And that's something that I practice with my kids, making sure that if there was a demonic encounter, that they were prepared for it, and they would come back and share it with me, and to the point that they didn't always need us to come in the room or to take authority because they was doing it themselves.
I think that is so powerful as just like taking authority and just even as you're sharing. I have a real dear friend named Jenna that has two little girls and one's named her Sadasa. And she's even, there's been times I think we were at the zoo one time and we were I think it was the Komodo dragon. And she was just like, I bind you because she thought it like as a snake like Satan. But just even doing that, I was like, this is really powerful. We're at the zoo and the Komodo dragon, she was talking about Jesus, go. And he started, slithering away. And it was just a moment for me to be like, wow, this is truly amazing because she's not even 3 yet, that you can train them at such a young age. And Apostle Deborah, what would you even say are some of the things that parents need to watch for? Because you talk about, there's a lot of paranormal activity that's going on, but there's certain
Mhm.
doors that are open. What are some doors that you would say parents, especially in our day and age, need to be aware of that are open that can bring on these attacks that children are facing?
Yes, because it's our responsibility as parents to guard them in the natural and guard them spiritually as well. So, what we allow them to watch, what we watch, because sometimes the atmosphere is charged, even though that child may be too young, could also be an infant, but could react to because they're spiritually sensitive, they could react to what's going on around them. My kids, even as they became teenagers, if they were watching a movie that was maybe a scary movie or whatever, I could be upstairs asleep and I would wake up out of my sleep because there would be a certain eeriness in the atmosphere. And I would say, okay, what are they watching? I would go downstairs and say, what do you guys have on TV? And he was like, "Oh, no, well, mom, well, we were just," I could sense it. And so I know that children do as well. They may not always be able to express it because sometimes what happens is they'll cry because that's the only thing that they know. They may not be able to put it into words. So children are very sensitive when it comes to, maybe, say, for instance, a person that's not necessarily a good person. They can't necessarily tell you that's a bad person, but they sense it or they see it. There's something that they see. And so I've come to know that if your children are screaming and they don't want to go around a certain person, you need to pay attention to that. There's a reason for that because we are responsible for keeping them safe. And sometimes we have put them into the hands of people that have been unsafe, not even knowing it because, we passed over the thought or, you know, they didn't, because they couldn't put it into words. And then sometimes they are afraid to say what they see. And so I think it's also important as parents that if they can come to you if they feel comfortable with sharing anything with you, then they'll come to you and they'll share what they see or they'll share what they hear. But if you make it, where they're uncomfortable, they're not going to share it. So, there are times that my kids have come to me and they've shared things that, was not necessarily good. I remember, one of my sons, and I put it in the book. Actually, he was in the restroom and had this open eye vision. I think he was in elementary, and he saw one of his godbrothers getting into trouble and saw law enforcement getting involved. Came out of the restroom and said, Mom, this is what I just saw. And I think it was like within the next week, his godbrother was indeed in trouble. And there was an encounter, with law enforcement. So I think we definitely need to pay attention. I can remember one of my nieces that had come to live with me. She was a toddler. She had to be about maybe 4 or 5 years old. We were at the state fair. We're at the fair, and she just started bawling. And we're like, "What's wrong? Why are you crying?" And she's like, "Don't get on this ride. Please don't get on this ride." And we're like, "Oh, no, it's, we tried to reassure her, everything's going to be okay. They got on the ride, all four of them. When they got to the third son, they stopped. And, the last person had to wait. And so the first group got on, they were fine. Nothing happened. So, they got off the ride. See, everything's fine. And then when the next group got on with the next son, as the ride was going, the engine blew and the chain popped. They were suspended in air, midair, and they were not upright. They were folded over, and the seat belts could have come loose. I mean, people were screaming, they were crying, but that particular son that was on there calmed everyone, began to pray for everyone. And so, we don't discount what they say because they could be sensing something, that's about to happen and we don't know it.